Welcome to Unravel the Moment. This is where we go underneath the version of history you were handed and show you what was actually there. If you have never been here before, subscribe now, because what we are about to tell you is the kind of story that makes you question not just what happened, but how it was allowed to happen in plain sight, in front of everyone, in America, in 1981. In the summer of 1981, a convoy of vehicles rolled into the high desert of Wasco County, Oregon, and began building a city. Not a commune, not a camp, a city. Within 3 years it had its own postal address, its own fire department, its own police force, its own airport, its own bus system, its own restaurant, its own hotel, its own dam, its own reservoir, and a population of 7,000 people who had left their families, their careers, their countries, and their former lives to be there. It had streets with names, it had a sewage treatment plant, it had a weekly newspaper, it was called Rajneeshpuram, and the man it was named after had never lifted a single stone to build it. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh was born in central India in 1931. By the time he arrived in America, he had already built a following in Pune that drew seekers from across the Western world, educated people, wealthy people, professionals and academics, and artists who had arrived in India looking for something their ordinary lives had failed to provide, and had found it, or believed they had found it, in the presence of a man who sat in a chair and talked for hours, and somehow made every person in the room feel like he was speaking directly to them. He called his followers sannyasins. He gave them new names. He asked them to wear red. He asked them to surrender. Not to him specifically, he was always careful about this, always precise in the way he framed things, but to the process, to the work, to the possibility of becoming something beyond what the conditioned mind had made them. He had 93 Rolls Royces by the time it ended. His followers bought them for him. They considered it a privilege. This is the part of the story that most people get wrong. They look at the photographs of the compound, the red clothes, the devotion, the cars, and they see stupidity. They see weak people being exploited by an obvious fraud. They feel the comfortable distance of someone who would never fall for something like that. That distance is the thing you need to be most suspicious of. The people who followed Rajneesh to Oregon were not stupid. They were not broken in any simple way. They were lawyers, doctors, therapists, engineers, former academics. They were people who had looked at the ordinary world, its compromises, its emptiness, its performance of meaning without the substance of it, and decided they wanted something real. Rajneesh offered them something that felt realer than anything they had encountered before, and the feeling was not manufactured from nothing. It was built on something genuine, something true enough to be convincing, and then taken somewhere its followers never saw coming. Because what arrived in Oregon in 1981 was not just a spiritual community, it was a machine. And the machine had a purpose. Its public face was designed specifically to conceal. The locals called them the Rajneeshis. They watched the city go up in the desert and did not know what they were looking at. Some of them felt uneasy in a way they could not articulate. The commune was polite, it was organised, it paid its taxes. It followed the rules closely enough that opposition felt unreasonable. It was only later, when they understood what had actually been planned, that the politeness made a different kind of sense. Because a man who intends to do what Rajneesh and his inner circle intended to do does not announce it. He smiles, he builds, he lets you watch and find nothing wrong, and he waits until the moment is right. The moment they chose involved 751 people, 10 restaurants, and a pathogen that the government of the United States would not identify as an act of deliberate terrorism for over a year. This is where we are going. To understand what happened in the Dalles, Oregon in 1984, you have to understand what Rajneeshpuram actually was beneath the meditation and the discourse and the red clothes. It was a total environment. That phrase sounds clinical, but the reality of it was anything but. A total environment is a place where every input a person receives, every conversation, every relationship, every meal, every hour of sleep, every moment of work, every source of information about the outside world is controlled by the same authority, not through bars and locks, through design. Rajneesh had spent years in India developing a therapeutic and spiritual methodology that was genuinely unlike anything in the Western tradition. He drew from Zen, from Sufism, from Gurdjieff, from encounter group therapy, from Tantra. His discourses were hours long and ranged across philosophy, psychology, religion, and politics, with a fluency that genuinely impressed people who came prepared to be skeptical. He was not performing intelligence, he was intelligent, and that intelligence was precisely what made what he built so effective and so dangerous. When followers arrived at Rajneeshpuram, they were welcomed with a warmth that felt total. People who had spent their lives feeling marginal, too intellectual, too sensitive, too searching for the comfortable structures of ordinary life, found themselves surrounded by others who understood them immediately. The belonging was real. That is the thing that critics of cult psychology consistently underestimate. The belonging is always real. It is the most real thing many people in these environments have ever felt. That is what makes leaving so incomprehensibly difficult from the outside. Work at Rajneeshpuram was mandatory and relentless. Followers worked 12 to 16-hour days building and maintaining the commune. Sleep deprivation at that level has measurable cognitive effects. It reduces the capacity for critical evaluation, increases emotional dependency, and makes the familiar presence of the group feel like the only stable thing in an increasingly blurred world. This was not an accident of poor planning. Communities do not accidentally work their members to that degree. Contact with family outside the commune was managed, letters were read, phone calls were monitored, information about the outside world arrived filtered through the commune's own newspaper and its own framing of events. Over time, the outside world began to feel not just distant, but threatening, a place that could not understand what was being built here, a place that wanted to destroy something precious. The commune and the world outside it became two different moral categories. Inside was truth, outside was fear, and at the centre of all of it, seen for 1 hour each morning as his Rolls Royce moved slowly through the commune while his followers lined the road in silence with their hands pressed together, was Bhagwan. He did not run the operation, he was very careful about that. He gave discourses, he sat in his chair, he spoke about love and consciousness, and the death of the ego. The operational control of Rajneeshpuram belonged to one person. Her name was Ma Anand Sheila. She was Rajneesh's personal secretary. She was 32 years old when the commune arrived in Oregon. She was the most organisationally brilliant and the most psychologically dangerous person in the entire operation. Sheila built Rajneeshpuram from the ground up. She managed the finances, the construction, the political relationships with local government, the legal strategy, the public communications. She was fierce and funny and completely ruthless, and she was devoted to Rajneesh with a specific intensity that she would later describe as the defining relationship of her life. By 1984, the commune was in a war with the local county government over land use and zoning. The Rajneeshis had attempted to take political control of Wasco County by flooding the voter rolls, busing homeless people from across the country to the commune, registering them and planning to use their votes to take over local government. When that plan ran into legal obstacles, Sheila turned to a different approach. If they could not add enough voters to win, they could remove enough opposing voters to change the outcome. What she chose to remove them with was Salmonella typhimurium, and the place she chose to deploy it was the salad bars of 10 restaurants in the Dalles. The question of how a spiritual community built on love and consciousness arrived at that decision is the question at the centre of this entire story. On September 9th, 1984, people in the Dalles, Oregon started getting sick. The Dalles was a small city of 10,000 people, the county seat of Wasco County, the local government that had been in a sustained legal and political conflict with Rajneeshpuram for 2 years. It was an ordinary American city with ordinary American restaurants, and over the course of 2 weeks, 751 people who ate at 10 of those restaurants developed severe gastrointestinal illness. 45 were hospitalized. None died, a fact that would later become significant when the actual scale of what had been planned became clear. The local health authorities investigated. They looked at food storage, they looked at food handling, they looked at sanitation practices across the affected restaurants. They found nothing that explained the pattern. The Oregon Health Division brought in the Centers for Disease Control. The CDC investigated. They produced a report that concluded the outbreak was most likely the result of poor food handling practices. It was the first successful bioterrorist attack on American soil in recorded history, and the government of the United States officially classified it as an accident. It would take 14 months and the collapse of the commune from within for investigators to understand what had actually happened. Sheila had established a clandestine laboratory inside Rajneeshpuram. It was hidden inside the commune's medical facilities. Inside that laboratory, members of the commune's inner circle had cultivated Salmonella typhimurium cultures using a sample obtained through methods that investigators later described as requiring a level of biological knowledge that did not happen by accident. They had tested the pathogen first on a county commissioner named Ray Matthew, who was directly involved in the zoning dispute with the commune. He became violently ill and recovered. Then they had deployed it at scale. Teams of sannyasins had visited the 10 restaurants, carrying the cultures concealed in bags, and contaminated the salad bars during the lunch rush. The objective was not to kill. The objective was to incapacitate enough voters in the Dalles in the weeks before the November county election that the Rajneeshi candidates would win. The attack was a voter suppression operation executed with a biological weapon by a religious community in rural Oregon in 1984. Read that sentence again. The people who carried this out were not shadowy operatives with military training, they were sannyasins, people who had come to Rajneeshpuram seeking enlightenment, spiritual community, a life beyond the emptiness of the ordinary world, people who wore red and meditated in the morning and worked 16-hour days building something they believed in, people who, at some point between arriving and following Sheila into a hidden laboratory, had crossed a line they could not clearly identify because the crossing had been so gradual and the justification for each step so carefully constructed that no single moment felt like the moment everything changed. That is how it works, not one dramatic choice. 1,000 small ones, each surrounded by the language of necessity, of protection, of defending something sacred against people who want to destroy it. Rajneesh himself denied knowing anything about the attack. He would continue denying it for the rest of his life. Whether that denial was true is a question investigators and his former followers have never fully resolved. What is not in dispute is what happened next, because the salad bar attack was not the only thing Sheila's inner circle had been planning. It was not even close to the most extreme thing on the table. By 1985, Rajneeshpuram was coming apart from the inside. The political takeover of Wasco County had failed. The bioterror attack had not delivered the electoral outcome Sheila had designed it for. Legal pressures on the commune's land use were mounting. And the relationship between Sheila and Rajneesh, the relationship that had been the operational spine of the entire enterprise, had fractured in a way that neither of them could repair. In September 1985, Sheila fled to Europe with a small group of her closest associates. Within days, Rajneesh called a press conference. He invited the media into Rajneeshpuram and told them that Sheila and her group had been running a criminal operation inside the commune without his knowledge. He described them as fascists. He said he had discovered wiretapping equipment throughout the commune, his own bedroom included. He said he was the victim of the same people his followers were victims of. He called on law enforcement to investigate. It was one of the most audacious pivots in the history of American public relations. Law enforcement investigated. What they found went significantly beyond the salad bar attack. Sheila's inner circle had bugged the phones of the commune, the hotel used by visitors, and the offices of people they considered threats. They had plotted to assassinate Rajneesh's personal physician. They had plotted to assassinate a United States attorney named Charles Turner, who was leading federal investigations into the commune's immigration fraud. They had planned a second, significantly larger biological attack. They had attempted to poison the water supply of the Dalles directly, an attack that, had it succeeded, would have affected the entire city rather than the customers of 10 restaurants. Sheila was arrested in West Germany and extradited. She pleaded guilty to charges including the attempted murder of Rajneesh's physician, the wiretapping operation, and the salmonella attack. She was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. She served 29 months. She was released for good behaviour, moved to Switzerland, and opened a care home for people with disabilities. She has given interviews in recent years in which she describes her time at Rajneeshpuram with something that does not resemble remorse. Rajneesh was arrested at a private airport in North Carolina while attempting to leave the country on a jet carrying significant amounts of cashmere and jewellery. He was charged with immigration fraud, specifically the arrangement of sham marriages between sannyasins and American citizens to obtain residency. He pleaded no contest, paid a fine of $400,000 and was deported from the United States. He was banned from entering 21 countries. He returned to Pune. He renamed himself Osho. He resumed teaching. He died in January 1990 at the age of 58. The official cause was heart failure. His followers have always maintained he was poisoned by the American government during his time in custody. A claim that has never been proven, and that serves, as such claims always do, the purpose of making the man who was caught fleeing on a private jet into a martyr rather than a fugitive. The commune at Rajneeshpuram was sold. It is now a Christian youth camp. But the story did not end in 1985. It did not end in 1990. The story has not ended. Osho is one of the most downloaded spiritual teachers in the world today. His discourses are on YouTube with millions of views. His books sell continuously across dozens of languages. The organization that manages his intellectual legacy, the Osho International Foundation, operates out of Pune with a global reach that includes meditation centers on every inhabited continent. His followers today number in the millions. Many of them are aware of what happened in Oregon. Many of them have a framework for understanding it that leaves Rajneesh himself untouched. It was Sheila, they say. It was her madness, her ambition, her corruption of something pure. The teacher was a victim. That framework is worth sitting with for a moment, because Sheila did not build the total environment. Rajneesh built it. Sheila did not develop the methodology of psychological surrender, the sleep deprivation, the managed isolation from the outside world, the elevation of the commune above the ordinary moral categories that apply to ordinary life. Rajneesh built all of that before Sheila ever had operational control of anything, and the question of what a man knows about the empire built in his name by the person closest to him, a person he selected, elevated, and empowered, is not a question that has a comfortable answer. The deeper question is not about Rajneesh specifically, it is about the conditions that produce a Rajneesh in the first place. Every major cult in modern history emerges from the same raw material, not stupid people, not broken people in any simple sense, people who looked at the world as it was, its spiritual emptiness, its manufactured meaning, its relentless demand that you perform contentment you do not feel, and decided they wanted something real. The hunger that drives someone into a total environment is a legitimate hunger. The thing being sold to them is a fraudulent response to a genuine need, and that is the part of this story that does not stay safely in 1984. The specific conditions that made Rajneeshpuram possible, the search for community, for meaning, for a life that feels like more than the accumulation of things and the performance of identity, those conditions have not gone anywhere. They have intensified. The technologies of influence that Sheila used crudely, the managed information environment, the US versus them framing, the slow escalation of commitment until crossing a line feels like nothing because you have already crossed so many. Those technologies exist now at a scale and a precision that 1984 could not have imagined. You carry them in your pocket. The 751 people who ate at those salad bars in the Dalles did not know they had been targeted. They went to lunch. They ate a meal. They had no framework for understanding that a spiritual community in the desert had decided that their bodies were an acceptable instrument for a political objective. What they did not know was the weapon. The question this story leaves you with is not whether you would have joined Rajneeshpuram. Most people would say no, and most people would be wrong about their reasons. The question is what you are already inside of that you cannot see clearly enough to name. What total environment has been built around your information, your relationships, your sense of what is real and what threatens it. Rajneesh died in Pune in 1990 with his name changed and his legacy intact. The movement he built is larger today than it was when the FBI arrested him at a North Carolina airport with a jet full of cash. History did not bury this story. History watched it happen, called it an accident, and moved on. That is what we are here for. If this is the kind of history you came for, bam, subscribe. We are just getting started.